Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 7. Let's watch.
Yeah, like one thing I appreciated is like you haven't like asked me like a million things about my job. Like, oh, like, so do you get to go to Art Basel? Like, what kind of art do you sell? Like, some people are like, so what's the most expensive piece of art you sold? And it's like, I understand wanting to know that because it's like inherently interesting. It's like, you just don't meet an art dealer every day. I don't want like my job to ever define me.
Yeah.
Even when I first shared.
What sort of people is he hanging out with? Because he's saying that people ask him what the most expensive piece that he has sold. And I know people in the art world. My wife is in the art world. You can go to @Stacy Honda on Instagram to see her art. And I've talked with gallery owners, and I've never asked that question, I don't think. Certainly that wouldn't be top of mind. Mostly I'd just be interested in what sort of art they like, or show me what you got, or why are you in this field, or what moves you, or do you ever buy some of your own stuff that you're selling because you just can't let go of it, or whatever. I don't know. There's lots of different questions that one would ask, and he's bringing it up again. He's saying that Hannah hasn't asked him. Well, also, it looked like Brittany hadn't really asked him either. He just inserted it. So is he about to insert it again to brag? Is that what we're about to see?
You wanted to know me, not like about my job.
Yeah, to be honest with you, like, when I heard it, I was like, oh, that's cool, but like, I don't even know exactly what that even means, to be honest with you.
Well, I like appreciate that.
You deal art, like, I guess.
Like, there would be a time when I'm happy to like explain that to you more. Like, I don't think it's as relevant for like emotional connection.
Okay, so she says, honestly, I didn't even know what that means. Does that mean you make art? I don't know. So, yeah, it's good, because that is on paper what he wants, is someone that doesn't pay attention to that. She doesn't even know what that means, right?
Okay, do you know I don't sleep naked? It's like very weird. I had this irrational fear that a snake or insects are gonna crawl in my pussy in my sleep. I've like tried, because I was like, maybe I can.
Let's get it.
All right, so Hannah's saying that she doesn't like to sleep naked because she's worried about a bug or a snake going into her nether regions. And I've heard of that worry before. It can be intense, it could be mild, but she is expressing that. And yeah, okay. Freud would have a field day with that one.
You were a cheerleader in high school. You dated the quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, so...
You know what I was thinking last night?
What's that?
I'll be your Taylor Swift, and you can be...
I could be the Travis Kelce.
You could be my Travis Kelce.
Oh my gosh, I'm a little bit better looking than Travis, but...
Okay,
hey,
okay,
I think you might be a little bit better looking than Taylor anyway.
Oh, don't say that.
That would be so funny. We could be a little cute football couple.
Maybe he's just joking and she receives it as that, but he is saying he's better looking than Travis Kelce. Yeah, everyone has a different gauge of attractiveness, but it is something you're not supposed to do in the pods, to talk about that kind of thing. Plus, are we seeing another Megan Fox situation?
Crush. So it used to be Beyonce. I think Scarlett Johansson's up there too.
Scarlett Johansson, yeah.
She is a babe.
Henry Cavill, I feel like that would be mine, because he's like hot, but he's also like, he builds computers.
Superman, right?
Woo.
I kind of look like him, like the less buff version of him.
Now he's saying he looks like Henry Cavill, a less buff version of Henry Cavill. Maybe he does, but he's not saying people say that about him. He's just saying, I think that about myself. I'm sure someone has taken a picture of Henry Cavill, a picture of Travis Kelce, and a picture of this guy. What's his name again? I'm trying to keep Nick D, right? Dorcas? What was his name? Anyway, but maybe he does. Maybe we're like, yeah, he's a spitting image of Henry Cavill, one of the most attractive human beings ever to live.
He's the dad that like taught me things. I don't know if I want kids soon, but I can't wait to see him be a granddad.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, she's an angel and a gangster all at the same time. Everyone loves her. Everyone, in not a disrespectful way, like calls her by her first name because it's just.
Okay, we're hearing her account of her parents, and it sounds potentially that she was raised well by parents that were loving and attentive. Maybe she's just talking about the good times, but it has that vibe to it.
Her first name is great, you said?
Yeah. You will not call her by her first name.
No? Just Mrs. Krause.
Mrs. Krause. My mom's first name, I think.
Okay, so her last name is Krause, which usually means that her dad is white and her mom is Asian, if she is half white, half Asian. I don't know.
It gives away part of like how I look, like my ethnicity.
Wait, I think I missed something. Let's rewind.
My mom's first name, I think it gives away part of like how I look, like my ethnicity.
I see. So she's not wanting to say her mom's first name. I don't know why she had to insert that. She could have just said, because she said her dad's name was Tom, so she could have just not brought that up, because I don't think she was asked, what's your mom? Well, she said, we call my mom by her first name, and her first name is Oscar Mayer. How's that song go? Anyway, but people aren't used to obscuring things, and so they might let things slip and then go, okay, how do we get out of this? So she doesn't want to talk about that, I think. Well, so either she doesn't want to reveal that she's Asian or half Asian, or she just doesn't want to screw with the experiment by describing what she looks like physically. I don't know.
Your ethnicity, the thought hadn't crossed my mind at all in any direction on that. So interesting. I have to admit, like I've dated white girls. That's all I've ever dated. Mm-hmm. It is a new feeling for me, even without knowing like what ethnicity you are. It's just, I'm not sure what that looks like for me either. Like going forward, like everything is just so, it's just a shock. I mean, it's really hard to explain.
So either he is clamoring due to bigotry or inexperience, or he's just uncomfortable with the topic and doesn't know what to say. But he said he's only dated white people, and that, well, let's rewind that.
I have to admit, like I've dated white girls. That's all I've ever dated. Mm-hmm. It is a new feeling for me, even without knowing like what ethnicity you are. It's just, I'm not sure what that looks like for me either. Like going forward, like everything is just so, it's just a shock. I mean, it's.
Why wouldn't you not know what it meant for you moving forward, and why is it a shock? You know that there are half of Americans are not white, right? You know that, right? So 50-50 chance that the person you're talking to is not white. So it shouldn't be a shock, and it shouldn't influence anything unless you're a bigot. I don't know. What's the problem here? Or he just doesn't know what to say, and he is worried he's going to get canceled if he says the wrong thing. I don't know.
Really hard to explain. Like, not a shock, but you are very like calculated about what you say, and while I love that about you, it's also like, I'm like, what's she hiding?
You're very calculated about what you say, and I love that about you. Doesn't sound like you love it. Calculated. That's quite a word. Calculate. So he's saying this in response to what she said earlier. She's like, well, my mom's first, I can't tell you my mom's first name because that would reveal ethnicity. And when she didn't follow it up in the edit anyway as to why she didn't want to say it, it would have been good for her to explain it. Like, I don't want to say what my mom's first name is because that would reveal ethnicity, and that would reveal my look, I suppose. And I want to be true to the experiment. And I guess I kind of screwed that up already by just even bringing up the topic, but I don't know what to do here. And then he says she's being calculated, like manipulative. That's what it sounds like, Machiavellian.
And that's good feedback to get. Just like, I guess it's hard to hear that. It comes across as like really calculated.
And it's probably not, it may not be fair. It's just how you talk. Like you're very slow and methodical and careful. And
okay, so that's good. that he's pulling. That's good that she said that was just hard to hear. That is one of the best things to do in a situation, the most healthy thing. The best communication is just to be like, oof, that kind of hurts. I don't know what to do with that one. Instead of being hurt and then going on the offense or distancing yourself or something. It looked like she was about to cry, because it is quite a word. It's quite an accusation. And then he picks up on it and says, well, maybe that's not what it is. Maybe you're just careful about what you're saying. And okay, it kind of comes across like both of them, I think, are careful, or just, compared to the other cast members in terms of the edit, they're not super disclosing because I don't know if I showed it, but they just got done saying that they really like each other. And then he says, tell me about your parents. And so they hadn't talked about that yet. Whereas other people, date one, they're talking about that kind of information.
But then also like the subtle, like, I don't want him to know my ethnicity. And is this like a carefully curated image that she's presenting? I don't know.
Okay, so he's interpreting it as calculated and withholding and trickery, that she's not disclosing that. I imagine it's not trickery because it's really bad trickery to essentially say, I'm half non-white. I'm just not saying what it is. It has to do with a name. I'm guessing for her, it's either because she's worried she's going to get rejected, or she's trying to follow the nature of, or the spirit of the experiment. He's interpreting it as manipulative and tricking him, which is interesting. Notable that that's where he goes. Maybe that's something to do with his past.
And I don't think it is. I really don't.
The reason that I wasn't going to share my ethnicity.
Okay, I'm curious what she says here. He says eventually, but I don't think it's you being manipulative. That was good for him to say. So it sounds like he was having an initial reaction of like, this feels manipulative. And as he walked his way through it, he's like, well, maybe it's not that. So actually, this is good. We can use this as a jumping off point. When we feel threatened or hurt, we often, without self-awareness and without modeling and differentiation, we will have a bunch of layers before we actually express something. So I'm guessing for him, he was worried that she wasn't for real, that she was withholding information because she didn't really love him or didn't trust him or was trying to trick him. And that was scary for him. He was worried that he is going to open himself up, propose to someone, maybe even get married to someone, he's going to marry someone who isn't really in his corner. That was a worry for him. Totally normal and okay to have that worry. But what he says, there's several layers from there, and that eventually what he says is you're calculated. So we can use this as a jumping off point. In our relationships, particularly our close relationships, we are frequently feeling hurt and afraid about rejection and about being disrespected or being put down or being ignored or neglected or insulted or something. And we will have that pain, we will have that worry. But without differentiation and without a protocol for how to be aware of that and express, to best communicate, without trust in each other to have a conversation like that, then we will obscure how we feel with a bunch of layers, sometimes subconsciously, and then we'll say something like, I'm just trying to think of an example, like say you feel like your partner is distant lately for the past week and you're hurt and worried about that, and you have a bunch of distrust and insecurity and worries and lack of self-awareness and layer upon layer. And then eventually what you say to your partner is, you're a jerk for not watching TV with me tonight or something like that. And your partner's like, wait, what? And what you're really trying to express is that you're hurt and worried about the distance that you are perceiving. Maybe there isn't distance, you just think there is, and it hurts, and you're worried, and that's okay. Another way to communicate is just to say, I feel distant, and I don't know if that's just my perception or I'm being paranoid, but I don't like being distant from you. I like to be close to you, and I'm worried that something is happening. I don't know if I did something that is causing you to distance yourself from me. I don't know if you're stressed out about something. I don't know if it's just me or I'm particularly needy right now. I don't know, but I don't like being distant, and I would like that not to be the case, or I just want you to know that I'm worried about that. So that's speaking from the foundation and is much more likely to get the kind of response that we want from other people, because when they aren't being attacked, then they're less likely to go on the defensive. And when they know how we feel, they are much more likely to please us. People have empathy. You don't have to tell people what to do. You just have to express how you feel. And people, as long as there's a system of trust and differentiation of the relationship, the other person will naturally figure out how to help you. You can just say, hey, I'm worried about distance. And the other person will feel, oh, even though I don't feel the distance, I don't want my partner to feel this distance. And so I'll make sure that I do what I can now and in the future to make them not feel like there's distance. You don't have to criticize. You don't have to direct. You don't have to say, hey, sometimes it's good to have those conversations, but it's not always necessary. So with him, he says calculated. I think a better thing he could have said was, I am really falling in love with you. He was basically saying that earlier. But I don't know if it's just because of the pod situation or the nature of the two of us or kind of the way you communicate, but I feel like there's this major question mark about who you really are. And as I'm becoming more vulnerable, I'm starting to, there's higher stakes. I'm wondering, like, do I really know this person? And I'm worried that I don't really know you enough to even know if it's safe to be as open with you. So that's what I'm feeling right now. If he would have said, and then maybe he could say, so can we just have a vulnerable conversation? Can you just tell me everything vulnerable about you? And I'll do the same to kind of accelerate this so that I can feel like I know the full you before proposing. Because I'm guessing he was in his headspace of like, because they were talking about how much they were into each other. He's like, and I bet you in the back of his mind, he's like, okay, proposal. But then he's like, oh shit, I barely know this person. She's pretty careful about what she's saying. She's calculated, right? So if he would have said that second version, I think that would have been less hurtful to her and would have actually prompted her to, oblige. Instead of putting her on the defensive, just like calculated, huh? Wow, ouch.
And I don't think it is. I really don't.
The reason that I wasn't going to share my ethnicity was because it was an opportunity to like have someone not know how I look at all. I'm just really interested to know if my emotional, intellectual, and like thought process.
Right. That's what I was thinking it was. At least it was on the short list that she's saying it's not really having to do with ethnicity so much as knowing what I look like. I don't want to describe anything about my physical appearance because I want to connect emotionally. I think that's what she's saying.
This is enough, and then everything else is extra.
My feelings for you are insane. Like I've described it as like my heart feels like it's being ripped out of its chest. But I know that I need to know more before I'm going to get there.
So I just want to contrast what he said, what Garrett said there, as a very clear and believable statement from someone who truly is into the other person, because this is a question that often comes up, right? Are they really into the other person? UK season, the Sam situation. And you will hear the person in question say certain things and they're not convincing, right? It doesn't mean that the person isn't into the other person. The question was Sam really into Nicole? And the way Sam responded was questionable. It doesn't mean that he's not into Nicole. It just means that he isn't very good at communicating that. I mean, that's what it could mean, right? It also could mean he wasn't really into Nicole. But the way Garrett responds and the way he talks is fairly believable that he truly is falling in love with Taylor, right? That's her name. So I just want to contrast that, because often when we're wondering about the Sams of the world, we're saying like, well, how, at least I am, I'm thinking, well, how would you know? What sort of questions do you ask to provoke statements from the other person that could convince you that they are truly there to fall in love and get married?
And then everything else is extra.
My feelings for you are insane. Like I've described it as like my heart feels like it's being ripped out of its chest.
And I'll say that's a great thing to say in that moment. It's very intuitive, emotionally intelligent of him that to say such a thing, because he wants to get close and he is worried about if he can trust her or not. I think that's what's happening. And instead of retreating completely and further pushing her away, he's basically saying, the reason why I'm bringing this up is not to criticize you. It's because I'm so in love with you, and I am worried that I don't know you well enough yet. So can we make our conversations more vulnerable? I think that's what he's saying. It's a pretty effective way of communicating. I'm often role-playing this for my clients. Like in the example that I gave earlier about the distance that you might feel with your partner, if you just say, hey, I feel distant from you, like, there's maybe 3 versions. There's, hey, you're a jerk face because you didn't watch TV with me tonight. And then there's the version where you're saying, I'm feeling distance. That's more differentiated, right? Then there's even more effective, which is to say, I feel distance and I love you so much that it's a huge priority to me that we're not distant. I really value when we're close. I love that. I love that feeling. And I am feeling less of that in this past year or this past week. To your partner, to be insulted, just say, hey, you're a jerk face for not watching TV, or you're never home, or whatever, or you work too much, or whatever, is hurtful. Causes people to go on. Now they're hurt, right? You're hurt, and now they're hurt, and now both people are hurt. The version of just saying, I feel distance, well, it's better. It's less hurtful. It's maybe not hurtful at all, but it doesn't inspire, right? And it isn't really what's going on for the individual. To hear someone tell you, I love being close to you, and I highly prioritize our relationship, and I feel distant lately, and I don't like it. For the other person to hear that, it's just like, whoa, wow, that feels good. I feel like we're having a tense conversation, but why do I feel better now? Why? On one hand, you're being insulted and attacked. On the other end, it feels good. It's like, oh wow, you really do value this relationship. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel loved. And you're telling me that you feel distant. I don't want that. Let's work together. It's very different. So for him to say that, I've been insanely in love with you, I think, or he did say that, he did say the L word. They used the L word as like a precursor to the proposal. But that was effective, and she seems to be receiving it well.
But I know that I need to know more before I'm going to get there, before I'm ready to make that next step. I need to know more about who you are. I think you definitely feel the same way, and I hope that you do. Like we need to learn more about each other.
Fantastic. He's doing exactly what I thought he was wanting to do. So he got there pretty quickly. He went from calculated to her being hurt and expressing that, which was great that she expressed this. That isn't great to hear. And that was very emotionally intelligent as well, and non-defensive and differentiated. And then he starts to clamor. He's like, blah, 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 word salad. I've only dated white girls. I don't know. And then eventually gets to this place. Oh, okay, I'm really, really in love with you. I really want to be with you. So maybe we need to talk more vulnerable. Can we make that a priority here? And so 2 thumbs up to that.
I'm excited to maybe, get to know you more and show more of me. But I think I'll be really hurt if this doesn't end up working out and I gave away what I look like. I need to, at a certain point, feel that I'm enough.
I mean, it makes sense to him. I would have questions, but it doesn't matter what I think or understand about what she's saying. It just matters that they understand. But she's saying that she would be hurt if she described what she looked like and got rejected. Okay. Sounds like they're vibing. Maybe what she is saying is that if she were to say, I'm half Asian, and then she gets rejected, that would really particularly hurt. But on the other hand, I don't know if that's what she's saying, but if that's what she's saying, then I would say, well, then good riddance, because if you have a ridiculous racist bigot that would really be into you, and then, oh, you're half Asian, this whole thing is off, I don't want to be with you anymore, then wouldn't you rather want to know that in the beginning? But I think she just made a mistake by even bringing up the name thing, because he wasn't asking, what do you look like, or what's your ethnicity? She was the one that brought it up.
It does.
Is that more helpful?
Yes.
Less calculated?
No, thank you. I do appreciate it. Yeah.
At least we can just find out that it's my personality that sucks. I almost want to just tell you so we can start talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, just tell him you're half Asian. Just move on. Because now he's like, is she half alien? Is she from another planet? What could she possibly be withholding from me right now? So, of course, race and racism could be a part of this. It'd be weird if it wasn't. I just don't know to what degree. I think it's tempting to project onto her what we imagine what she'd be thinking, that she would be terrified of racist attitudes. We don't know that about her. I have to say, maybe it's just because I'm in Seattle, but being half Asian in Seattle isn't really a big deal. There's a lot of Asians. There's some half Asians. The one place on the planet that I feel normal is in Hawaii, because there's a lot of half Asians there. But outside of Hawaii, Seattle, LA, those, San Francisco, are places where there's a lot of Asians and, some half Asians. So, and really when I say half Asian, it depends on which half Asian, because every Asian culture is vastly different from the next. So, really what I feel comfortable with is with other half Japanese, half Northwestern European descendant people. And what generation? I'm fourth generation. First generation or second generation Japanese Americans are really different. There's a distinct Japanese American culture that has been developed and has evolved over the past 100. My ancestors came over 120 something years ago, and the Japan they left was a very different place. Plus, there's different regions and cultures in Japan. You have elites and poor people, and South and Mid, and anyway. Point is that. I should bring up the topic of racism. It could be a part of this, but I'm not going to assume that. I don't like it when people assume things about me in terms of racism. I remember when I was in graduate school 30 years ago, and on a paper I wrote something about my experience with racism. And my professor, I remember she wrote in the margin that I was naive about racism, about how much racism I might have experienced in my life. And I didn't like that. I didn't like someone telling me the amount of racism that I may or may not have experienced, No one can define that for someone else, and we can't define that for her. We don't know. She's not saying anything explicit about that. What she's saying explicitly is she just doesn't want to reveal what she looks like. So, we'll take that and maybe have mild question marks about what else could be going on for her.
So we can start talking about other things.
I know. No, but don't. Seriously don't. I think it's uniquely Taylor, and I love that. It's just a.
What?
I think what he needs to say is, I don't care what ethnicity you are. Just say that, dude. Especially since you said you've only dated white people. That raises a question as to why. Now, maybe it's just circumstance, which is totally fine, but it also could be a preference or a racism issue. Just say, I think she's still hurt naturally. She a little earlier said, does that sound less calculated? And then she kind of made a joke about her personality. It's like, well, if you reject me, then at least I'll just know it's because you don't like my personality. Ha ha ha. So it also makes me wonder about her self-esteem around this. it doesn't seem to be completely. I think it's natural for her to be hurt, but I really hope he just says, Taylor, I don't care what ethnicity you are. I don't care. I haven't even thought about any of that stuff. So it's like, how do you prove a negative? I'm not racist. I'm just trying to think. I think just that say, Taylor, I do not care what ethnicity or whatever you are. I will love you, or I will like you, or I want to be with you. I think that would be a good thing to say. Sometimes when I think about it in my head, I'm like, yeah, that'd be a good thing to say. And then I say it out loud and it sounds stupid. What would you say? Let me know in the comments.
What?
It's I have no idea what you look like. I have no idea. But it's not something that's going to prevent me from, saying I want to do this.
Okay, that was good. I mean, at the very least, it was a lateral move from what I said. Probably better.
It's just so strange, right? Like, that I feel this way about someone I've just been talking to.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.